Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Rays Rewind with Bell, Bushman, and Drew.
Jansen. That is into center field. Here comes Kiermaier. Phillips has tied the game. Arose Arena coming around. Throw home. Now he stumbles. But the ball gets away. Tampa Bay wins it. Brett Phillips, Game 4 hero.
The sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome back, everybody. It is the Rays Rewind podcast, the sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. Welcome back in. It is me, the great Al Bushman, and of course, Drew is with me as always. Before we get into the show, make sure you go to our YouTube page at the Sick Podcast, Rays Rewind, hit the subscribe and notification bell for every new episode that drops, and they'll be dropping more as soon as baseball season kicks off, and we're kicking off this week with spring training games. I can't wait. The excitement is coming. I'm going to go either on Saturday and Sunday, so I can't wait for that to happen. So, Drew, what's up, man? It's been a while. I think the last time we had a show is when Ha-Seong Kim was signed to the Rays, which wasn't too long ago, but many things have happened between them. A certain pitcher that's coming back has already gotten the nod for the opening day start. We've heard some good things about guys they've signed, and hopefully the stars can align and the baseball gods will say, hey, you know what, guys? Everybody's going to stay healthy this year, and guys that we sign are going to contribute, and all the hitters that weren't hitting last year will hit, and everything will be okay. But that's just the way it is in baseball land, so we'll see what happens. But I do want to start with Shane McClanahan, Sugar Shane, getting the nod for opening day starter. I don't know how I feel about that.
Really?
Yeah, and I say that, look, congrats to him. He is the ace of the staff, but shouldn't it be like earned? I mean, he hasn't pitched in almost a year and a half, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, you're the opening day starter. You haven't done any games yet. You haven't done any spring training yet. So we don't know really how you look. So to me, I'm glad he got the start, but I'm also kind of like, maybe it should have been left up to a competition and see really who is going to earn it instead of just giving it all, just giving him the nod already. I mean, what do you think?
Well, so you're saying you think it should be earned in spring training?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Because, and I say this because our rotation so far is stacked. I mean, they are kind of unsure if they want to do even a 6-man rotation now. So there is going to be an odd man out that's going to be going into the bullpen. But
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. So, but I think with the other guys that are in the rotation now, I think at least they should have some sort of competition to earn the start for opening day. I mean, Shane does deserve it. I mean, he is the ace of the staff. He's the number one, which we all know he's going to be. But I want to see him pitch in spring training before, you give him the nod. Maybe I'm on the other side of the spectrum when it comes to this sort of thing. But to me, if you're already saying, hey, you're the guy, I want to see something before you give him the nod.
Yeah. Well, maybe, glass half full. Maybe that means they
have that
confident in what they've seen. I know it's limited. Obviously these guys do, workouts in the off season, and I'm sure they've seen him pitch and work out at, other times. They've done specials on the pitchers staying in St. Pete over the off season and working with Kyle Snyder and all that. So maybe, they probably are very familiar with how he looks now. I highly doubt him pitching the last day or two is probably, the first time they've seen him pitch. So maybe they are confident in what he's showing. I get your point. I understand what you're saying. I think had somebody like Taj Bradley, right? Like last year, I think it was June, July, where he had that 8-9 start run where he was just dominating.
Yeah, he was the man.
If he kept that up, let's say through the end of the year, and just was bursting onto the scene now as this top young pitcher, he was an ace in the making kind of thing. With that, a strong second half of the season like he was showing, then I can maybe see having a little bit more pause about naming Shane the starter now, thinking that, hey, he's been out a year. there's at least another guy on the staff that seemed to take over as the ace in Shane's absence, and maybe you should let them kind of duke it out a little bit in spring to make that decision. But since Taj kind of tailed off at the end, I think he got tired. Pepio and Littell were great, but they weren't anything incredible. Baz and Drew obviously are. Drew's coming back from the bullpen work he did last year, and then Boz is coming back from his own, Tommy John. I don't know. It feels like to me, it's like it's almost more by default than anything. I don't think that there would have been anything that happened in this spring that would have been like, all right, we need a name.
Yeah.
Over Shane. So if they go ahead and name it now, I think that shows they're confident in what he's showing so far in workouts. And then on top of that, just I think from a planning perspective, it's just probably nice to have that out of the way and be able to kind of work toward however they line these guys up, to start the year and kind of work towards that over the spring. So, I mean, like you said, he's the ace of the staff. There's no one that's ascended to that role in his absence. I think there's guys on the staff that could be, potentially a 1B and 1C to Shane's 1A. But for now, I mean, he's the guy, and he's going to have to be the guy for the Rays to, be a playoff team this year and get back to, above 500 ball and all the things. So, I'm just excited to see him pitch.
Yeah, I'm too as well.
I saw a clip of him pitching in the bullpen, and I love watching him pitch because I love how he faced. And this is probably nerdy.
He's got like a little beard going on too.
Yeah, and
he's not fresh faced.
And he's always like fully facing the pitcher or the batter. And I was like, man, I really miss that. I miss that form that he's got on the mound. I missed watching him pitch last year, and I honestly didn't realize it until I saw him, pitching now in camp. So. We'll see what happens, but thankfully it's the Rockies on opening day, so I'd like to think that he could get off to a strong start. But
I'm glad
will be important.
I'm glad that with him back, and the guys that are coming back. I mean, we talked about this like last year. Like, imagine hey, we're going into 2025 with a full stable of dudes, like a full stable of pitchers that it's the good problem to have, because you have so many guys that are in that starting rotation, and the Rays pride themselves on pitching and defense. It's like, okay, everything's got to click. We've got to go through spring without any kind of injuries to the pitching staff, and we've got to start the season with any kind of injuries to the pitching staff as well. And it's just gotta be there. I mean, they made the announcement at FanFest on Saturday that he was going to be number one. I thought it wasn't legit, because I started looking at Twitter. I'm like, well, I was just there. I didn't see anything about that. I didn't hear anything about that, but it was true. And I agree with you. I think it's a good way to get that out of the way, to have him as the number one, name him, and then that way they can plan around, okay, who's going to be number 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, and then if they go 6, go 6. But to me, I'm like, if you announce it and he hasn't pitched anything, and then he goes out and something happens during the spring, okay, you got to make a plan B for that. So I was a little surprised they announced it that quickly. Like, hey, okay, he's already going to be number one for opening day. But I digress. I think as we get closer to the season starting, my confidence level on this team is starting to trend up a little bit, because it's the hype train. It's the hype train. We've got a great rotation. I think this year's defense is going to be better than last year, because I think with the position players that we have coming in here now, Caminero is going to be here. We'll have Kim and probably May at some point as the starting shortstop. So I just look at this team as it's much improved, but the thing that worries me the most is the hitting. The hitting's got to be there. And it's the guys that weren't hitting last year that really have to step up this year. And I've heard some things about Eloy Jimenez, who signed a minor league contract with us, that he's like tearing the cover off the ball in practice, and he lost 20 pounds. So it's like, okay, well, is this guy going to be your DH? Is this the guy that's going to bring extra pop? And then Kim's another guy. Is he going to be fully healthy when he comes back in May? That's going to bring extra pop to that lineup too. So it's like, it's all these hype things, but it's like, man, don't disappoint me when the season starts because you're going to be at home most for the first 3 months of the season. Then you're going to be mostly away because of the summertime months. But it's just like I want it to be there, and I just hope it is. FanFest was fine, by the way. I mean, it was.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you. I know you went. It's at the pier. I've actually, even when I was in the area, I've never been to FanFest, which is funny. It's always around my birthday too. They always usually have it around like my birthday, especially in the middle of February, and then it's always seems like it's a great time. It's free, but I don't know, for whatever reason, it just never worked out for me to go. And I know this year was at the pier.
Why they hadn't done it at the pier in years prior was kind of a head scratcher because I was talking to my wife. We were walking through, like, it was great. It was wide open. They covered pretty much all the pier area from like the beginning part to kind of before you really get on the pier because you were in these little like grassy knolls areas. They had one point, but like it was so opened up. It was cool. I mean, it was nice outside. It was a little hot, but it was like nice outside. There was a breeze. And my wife and I were talking like, man, this is a lot better than being at the Trop because the Trop, you're inside, crowded with a bunch of people. It's really kind of enclosed in like the infield and outfield area where everything's kind of close together. So you're kind of bumping into people. With this, it's really spread out. And what was really cool about it was a lot of the players were just walking around as normal people and doing autograph sessions and just kind of mingling in with the crowd, which I thought was pretty cool. And then they had WDAE out there doing shows, and then they had just booths everywhere. So if they decide to do FanFest again, do it at the pier. It's a great idea. I mean, parking wasn't all that bad too. I mean, I got a space right up front, so it wasn't that bad. It was really enjoyable.
Were the players? I know that some of the guys that participated, like I saw Pete Fairbanks and Kevin Kelly did like a game show thing, and they had certain autographs. I mean, were a lot of the, I say bigger names, like we got these superstars, but was like Junior there or
Junior was there? He was signing autographs, walking around. Kim was there. He was walking around. He actually walked past me and my wife and kids, and he had like an entourage of security around him too. And then he stopped kind of like where the beach area stopped at the pier, stopped, and people where he was signing autographs and taking pictures. And then Taj and who else was it? It was Taj and somebody else. They were doing an autograph session. But I mean, it was really well organized. It was really laid back, really well organized in that way. It wasn't like just a cluster of people just bouncing around everywhere. So it was enjoyable. It was actually enjoyable.
Good. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I know that's the first thing, I mean, they obviously, it's having to adjust that whole FanFest thing, given everything that's going on with the hurricane. So it's good to know that it went well. And, I think it sounds like it worked out for the better. And, I feel like maybe we could do a whole episode. I was thinking about, later in the spring when we get closer to the season, we could do, one episode about, an optimism episode about why this is going to be a great year. Then, I'm sure there's, we could do an episode, pessimism episode about why it could be a bad year. I mean, I'm always hopeful. I think short of just, I mean, I was hopeful going into last year. I always feel like this team has such a high floor that they just have to be, and I've said this before, league average in offense for them to be a borderline playoff team. And then anything else above that offensively, it's gravy. And that's the difference between them being, winning the AL East potentially with 95 to 100 wins or being a borderline wildcard team. Right.
Yeah. Right now, the win total is like 81.5. And I wanted to ask you, with all the moves that the Yankees and the Red Sox made, because they have made some significant moves to, hype up their rotation. Well, I wouldn't say more on the rotation side, but like their offense, both sides, for the Red Sox, especially the Red Sox. Yeah. And from what I heard, the Red Sox are trying to work to getting a trade done to get Dylan Cease in the rotation too. How we stack up against them. I'm not worried about the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays only made one significant move. I don't think the Orioles are going to be the same, but I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year.
Yeah. I have, so To answer your first question, 81 and a half, you said
81,
wins. I mean,
81
I think, because that would basically put them at 500. They were what, 80 and 82 last year, or 79 and 83?
80 and 82.
Yeah. So I think the pitching is going to be much better. You
Yeah.
remember last year, like the offense was terrible, but you remember that first like month and a half to 2 months, like the pitching was awful.
And the
If
defense
it
was
wasn't the
atrocious. And the
starter,
defense was atrocious too.
and if it wasn't the starter, yeah, if it wasn't the starter, it was the bullpen. I mean, there was like a series in Colorado at the beginning of the year,
Ugh.
where Jason Adam and Pete Fairbanks were given. I mean, it was just like almost seemed like every
And
night somebody in the
that
bullpen.
series with the White Sox was
Oh
just
yeah,
like
Milwaukee. I mean, so it was such a mess pitching wise to start the year, and then once they got things under control and the bullpen was lights out second half of the season, it's just the offense, And the thing is everything gets made about being with runners in scoring position. They were so bad. Well, and that's true. They were like their average with runners in scoring position. I looked the other day. I think they were either last in Major League Baseball or second to last, only in front of the White Sox, which gives you some indication about how bad they were. But in terms of plate appearances, they were sixth in the American League. I think it was like top half of Major League Baseball in plate appearances with runners in scoring position. So to me, that says, okay, they were getting opportunities with runners in scoring position. They were just terrible, historically bad for this team, at least, at getting guys in and advancing the runners and getting them in. And I know that, Cash just talked about that. That's a big focus of spring training this year. They're just trying to figure out whatever they can do to improve upon that for this season. So I think that's a good thing that they're doing that, because, you look at like in 2023, the offense was so great, right? Compared to 2024. And it was much, they had a different team, right? Wander was there and there's a few other guys. Randy, that wasn't slumping hard like he was last year. That was another thing, man. Last year was so, I don't know how he podcasted through last year. It was a mess. But the plate appearances, runners in scoring position wasn't that drastically different, but the batting average was about 60 points higher. Now, that's a significant difference and shows you the difference between what that means for the Rays in terms of a win-loss record. So going into this year, I think the added focus and improving upon that runners in scoring position in spring is going to be helpful. I also think too, just how baseball is, law of averages. Like, I think I'm a big believer in, like, we had terrible luck last year with runners in scoring position because at the end of the day, it's a skill, but there's also, I think, a luck component. Just, bat balls in play, like batting average on balls in play. Some years, some guys, it bounces their way. Other years it doesn't. Like, I think this year as a team, and this might be kind of a thin argument, I just think it was so bad last year that I think this year it has no other choice but to be better.
Well, yeah,
And
there's no other way but up. There's no other direction.
And if they can actually improve, skill wise in terms of their mentality and their approach at the plate, and that they're not having guys go up there trying doing too much, but they're just trying to focus on getting the guy in, getting the guy over, and just, shortening their swing, all the things you hear. And then they have a little luck on top of that. I personally think that the ball is going to bounce their way, so to speak, in this area a lot more this year than it did last year. And I think that can only mean good things. So, I mean, like, optimistically, I feel good about the team.
I look at it this way too with runners in scoring position is I could probably think about 10 games, 10 to 12 games where runners in scoring position was such a problem. You like to have those games back where they actually got guys across home plate, then we're talking about a win total of 92 instead of 80. You know what I mean? And I'm with you on it. I mean, there's only one way to go up, especially with this team now. And I think with the dynamic of the team last year was just all over the place too, where I think I brought it up to you. There was no identity. There was no identity with the team, and I think that's something that you need to have going into the season.
They lost leadership. They lost Kevin Kiermaier. That was or was that? No, I'm sorry. That was the second year without.
Well,
Kevin.
Randy was in his huge slump.
Up and
it
just was weird. There was no cohesiveness.
Yeah.
You had injuries to start camp. You had Josh and Jonathan Aranda hurt. So man, I don't know. I feel like that combined with the stadium situation of, they're not playing at the Trop, but the park dimensions of Steinbrenner already are such a huge bump to hitters. I'm thinking guys like And I know we laugh about Brandon Lau and injuries and stuff, and we've had a lot of conversations about him.
If he doesn't come away with at least a 25, 30 home run season,
yeah, I mean,
and if they bring up Eloy Jimenez too, I mean, there's another guy that's a 20-plus home run hitter as well.
Yandy's opposite field power. I mean, how many times have we seen Yandy hit the ball the opposite field for a homer? Junior Caminero, I know, doesn't have a ton of time in the majors, but he's got several balls that, I mean, his first career home run was an opposite field shot against the Blue Jays. He's had a number of balls that he can drive opposite field. You got guys like Josh Slow, Jonathan Aranda, Brandon Lau, like we said, like Eloy Jimenez, who can just hit the ball anywhere he wants. Now, you got to go out there and do it, but I just think that the situation sets up so much better just before you even get on the field. Like everything about this season, from the stadium to the roster.
We don't mention the stadium stuff.
Yeah, sorry. I just, like the dimensions and everything. Like I just think they have a much better opportunity to be a better performing offense. Now, on the flip side, that means the pitching's got to be sharper because the Trop is such a great place to pitch. You're not going to get that comfort at Steinbrenner, and there's all these, factors with the heat and humidity and everything. I get it.
Yep.
But I think offensively, again, like I don't think, and this could be naive, I get, because it's really easy and popular to say that like this Rays team, can they hit? They're not going to hit. They don't hit. I personally think that it wouldn't shock me for them to be much closer to that 2023 version.
Yeah.
And now this is assuming health and all the things like, who knows what's going to happen in spring. Guys get hit with pitches, things like that, pull muscles. I mean, we've already seen around the league, there's, guys reporting to camp. Thankfully, the Rays, I think, cleared that hurdle with guys reporting and coming in with injuries because there was nothing reported. I mean, I think I just saw like Frankie Montas for the Mets. He's out for a month and a half or so with a lat issue.
I think the only guy that we have to just not worry about, but just kind of keep an eye on is Kim. Everybody else is reporting.
Yeah, and and he's already booked for a month and a half off. Yeah. So, as long as I don't know, there's a lot to feel good. I personally think, and again, I raise color glasses, all the things. I'm sure I'm biased. It's hard for me not to go into a season knowing that the pitching is as solid as it is. The defense is going to be better. And on top of that, like Junior, I know that he wasn't. I've watched enough of him. I feel like last season and even in the Dominican League, I mean, the guy's making plays in the field. So he's not thought of as much as a fielder. Obviously, the bat takes precedent with him. He's very impressive with his bat, but I think that at third, I think he's going to be far from a liability.
You want to be the most Tampa Bay Ray thing ever. As if they make the playoffs and then win a World Series.
Not at the Trop.
Not at the Trop by renting Steinbrenner Field. That's the most Tampa Bay Rays thing that could happen to this team.
My wife said the same thing because, of course, they go on the big run in 2020.
COVID, there's nobody there.
Like, and could you imagine like that Brett Phillips moment? They were the home team, having that happening at the Trop, that would have been.
I'm telling you that's probably what's going to happen is they're going to probably make the playoffs, make a deep run, but hey, we're running out Steinbrenner.
And and like I said, you talk about like the vibes, like 2 years ago, they get off to such an undefeated start, and it's like, it can't possibly be that good again the next year. And it definitely wasn't. They had a much tougher schedule to start.
Yep.
With the Blue Jays and the Rangers and a few others there. And so it's like, all right, well, this year, this is the year, like no one's really thinking of them doing anything. And that's typically also the years where the Rays kind of
I like it.
They sneak up on people.
I like being under the radar. And we said
they thrive in that.
We talked about this in a few shows last season when we were just kind of like, you know what, probably going to throw in the towel and just kind of look at next year. I rather would be under the radar and surprise a lot of people than trying to be one of those favorites where everybody's just like, oh, yeah, this is the team to beat. This is the team to beat. I want them to fly under the radar. I want to be that sneaky team that's nobody's really talking about. And what's good about that is if you don't have a hype train, then you can be sneaky good. And then the momentum's going to start to happen for you, especially when you got guys coming back healthy, like Josh Lowe's coming back healthy. And
Mm-hmm.
I think Junior's going to be the guy that's really going to step up and being the leader of the team. I mean, this team should be built around him because he's the next superstar.
Mm-hmm.
I have, like I said before earlier in the show, look, I think as the weeks have gone by and I've kind of not paid attention to what's going on with the stadium stuff.
Yeah.
Let's just pay attention to the team and see how this goes. And right now it's like, look, the stars could align where all these guys are going to stay healthy throughout the year and the hitters are going to hit and everything gets turned around. And we just had that one fluke of a season where everything was all over the place. Nothing was gelling together. Everybody was like just playing so bad where it was just unbearable sometimes. Now, granted, they won 80 games. And I think with what they had to go through last year, winning 80 games is pretty admirable. It's pretty damn good. So, I mean, I'm looking at it this year where, they plugged the holes that they needed to do where they got a catcher in Danny Jansen. They got a guy in Kim that's going to be probably the starting shortstop when he comes back. And then you're going to bring in guys that could make impacts like Eloy Jimenez. And then you got guys like Junior Caminero and then, guys that are coming back healthy, like all the rotations coming back healthy. And then you had guys that got hurt last year in the lineup that are coming back fully healthy. It's like, okay, I think this is the first time we are going to be fully healthy going into the spring where we don't have to worry about question marks about, hey, how's the rotation going to look? Or how's the defense going to look? It's like, okay, it's there. Let's see the execution and be competitive. And, I look at what the Red Sox and the Yankees did. It's like, yeah, we've seen this story before where it's an inflated payroll where they're trying to compete with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
They're just trying to compete with the Dodgers and they're kind of overlooking about teams that are still in the AL East that give them hard times. It's like, let them do their thing where they're trying to compete with the Dodgers, where the Dodgers are pretty much gobbling up every player and just throwing a bunch of money. I look at what the Yankees and Red Sox doing is, yeah, it's great. You're throwing a bunch of money at guys, but is it going to buy you a championship?
Yeah. I mean, and because if you're going to just buy a championship, the Dodgers do it better than anybody.
And the Red Sox are already having turmoil anyways, where Devers says he doesn't want to, he's not going to give up third base. And
I think that'll work itself out, but man, that's always
any misery that comes to the Red Sox where it's inner turmoil. I'm all for it. Yeah.
You mentioned the division, and I know we'll do more in depth predictions or previews, whatever later, but a lot gets made of the Yankees because they're in the World Series. I personally, again, my bias is probably showing. I look at the Yankees team and I know that they added guys and they did the quantity over quality approach with free agency because they missed out on Soto.
Yeah.
I get that.
The guys they brought in are aging stars.
Right.
Like
and
aging guys that are probably not going to play the full season.
Juan Soto, it was palpable last year how much of a difference he made in that lineup in terms of it just made it feel like such a just a grind getting through that first half of the lineup.
Stan, who came out of nowhere and started producing, and he hadn't been doing that in the past 5 years. So but when you take Soto, and Soto killed the Yankees too, or killed the Rays. Yeah. So you take him out. Personally, the Rays have always been able to hit or pitch to the Yankees really well. Judge's numbers against them are not good. He's obviously had some big hits against them, but he's Aaron Judge. But his historical numbers against the Rays, they've always pitched him very well. Same with Stanton. I think a lot of their team. I mean, Bellinger's fine, I guess. He's done okay, and I know that big things are expected of him in Yankee Stadium. I guess he could have a great year. I don't know. I don't think there's no one in that lineup besides Aaron Judge. But he's obviously been there. Anybody new that they've added is not going to make nearly the same impact as Juan Soto. So for me, no matter what the Yankees did this offseason, it was always going to be they're not as good of a team this next year because they don't have Juan Soto. I think their pitching, quite frankly, is a little overrated. Max Fried is great, but he's had injury concerns. I think Rodon is easily one of the most overrated pitchers in the American League. Garrett Cole, he's whatever. He's getting older. His underlying numbers aren't as strong. I think that this is a team that we've seen in the past, the Yankees, where
Aaron Judge is struggling or teams just pitch around him, and then the rest of the lineup starts struggling and they can't score. And I think you could easily see that again this year. You could also see them be the Yankees and hit home runs and everybody's excited, whatever. I think that they're already starting off at a worse place no matter what because they don't have Juan Soto. The Red Sox, in my opinion, are the better team going into the season. If we're gonna say like, hey, who we think is gonna win, I personally think the Red Sox because I think that top half of the order is. I think the lineup's better than what the Yankees can offer, and I think the pitching is not have as good high end, but Garrett Crochet is about as good as anybody, and I think they just have a better manager. I think Alex Cora is actually a really good manager, and he makes a difference for that team. Yeah, the rest of the division, I mean, the Orioles, they're like the it team, or they were. It's amazing to me how they had almost like, it's like, how could you possibly screw this up, right? They have all these young players coming up. They're all hitting. They're all like taking off. It's just like, oh my gosh, they got Gunnar, they got Adley, they got Jackson Holiday's coming up. He's can't miss. They had this incredible lineup, and they had Grayson Rodriguez, Corbin Burns, and all this stuff. And now, like,
I'm not scared of the Orioles anymore.
They tailed off at the end of the year, and they're just kind of there. They didn't really do anything. It's like, how is this ownership not going out and like
getting big name
they
players,
just traded guys for Corbin Burns, and now they don't have them anymore. And now, if you look at their rotation, I mean, their lineup's great. Don't get me wrong. Gunnar Henderson's incredible. Adley Rutschman had a down year last year. They've got other young guys that are going to be good, but they've still got a lot of guys like Tyler O'Neill. I've never been impressed with. I know he hits lefties really well, but he's not like a difference maker to me. And they got other guys that like Jackson Holiday. Can he actually hit in the major leagues? Like, we don't know that. And so, yeah, you would think that he's going to figure it out, and he very well could. But like, their biggest free agent signing besides Tyler O'Neill was Gary Sanchez and Ramon Laureano on the lineup. So they don't, it's the same guys that we're used to. And I thought Santander, in my opinion, when we would watch the Orioles, he was the guy, to me, was kind of like their Juan Soto. I get that Gunner's the best player, but to me, Santander was the one that extended that lineup. And he was always the one that scared me the most. And now he's not there. He's on the Blue Jays.
Which that was really the only big move that the Blue Jays made. I mean, you can
they're
say
old. They're getting older, and
Mad Max is old too, and like they signed him. It's like the Blue Jays got significantly older.
Do you know? I realize. So according to Roster Resource on Fangraphs, do you know who they have as the SP1?
And the Blue Jays
on the Orioles for SP1 for this season right now?
No, I don't.
Zach Eflin and Grayson Rodriguez. Now, I would think maybe Grayson Rodriguez probably gets the nod for their opening day, but he's had injury concerns every season he's been in. He obviously was real strong last year at times, but like, he's far from established. So you got Zach Eflin and then Charlie Morton. And
that's right. Morton signed with the Orioles. That's right.
So, I mean, their pitching staff to me feels very underwhelming. And I know that
it's old and underwhelming now.
And they've got Bautista coming back, so their bullpen could be really strong again. And that's very possible. And so they could be a team that's like, all right, we're just going to score a bunch of runs, and as long as our pitchers can maintain, a 4 ERA or 3 ERA or whatever, and we can shorten games on the back end. And that could be how they, win a bunch of games. And I'm not saying they're not going to be a good team this year. It feels like the steam behind the Orioles compared to last year, especially, is
it's petered out a little bit.
It feels much different. Like, it felt like they were like almost inevitable about being this like juggernaut of a team.
I think it's because they didn't really make any significant moves in the offseason.
Yeah.
And just kind of stayed put, except for signing Charlie Morton. Yeah. They stood put, and that's why really nobody's talking about the Orioles like they were last year, is because like no significant upgrades to anything.
So it'll be interesting. They moved the fence back in from left field, which is wonderful. So we'll see there, but yeah, I don't know. I just think, I'm not saying the Rays are going to go out and win the division. I think it would take a lot going right offensively for that to happen. And
I think it's going to be, this whole division, the AL East, which it's going to be more competitive than what people think it's going to be.
Right. I think the Yankees and Red Sox for sure have
Except for the Blue Jays. I don't think the Blue Jays are going to be any kind of competitive this year.
If they score a bunch of runs, I think, I don't know if they have an older staff too. It's just hard to know. Hard to know how they're going to hold up.
And Bichette's been kind of on a downturn.
Yeah, he could turn it around. He might not. It's just all these teams have names, right? And it's like we're so used to some of these guys being so good, but they really haven't shown it. But it's just like you don't know what you're going to get. And the Rays, it's almost like the opposite. It's like we don't have the names, but so much I feel like went wrong last year that I feel like it's something that I think is going to turn around this year. It has to, because it was so bad the year before. And you mentioned Eloy. Like, he's someone that really excites me because I'm really excited to watch him in spring training, because I didn't realize, when they signed him, I thought, okay, well, he's, former top prospect guy. I mean, he was like a can't miss hitter, and he's had success, but he's had so many injuries. He, was on the White Sox, and it was just a terrible environment the last couple of years there. So for him to have such a terrible year last year, get a minor league contract with the Rays, and have a chance to prove himself, to me, that excites me, because he comes in, and you said he's lost 25, 30 pounds, so you're hoping that can make him a little more durable. And, a guy a motivated player like that, who's got a big chip on his shoulder, that is essentially a cast off. Those are the guys that the Rays, back when they started turning things around as an organization, those are the guys that would come in and be difference makers. That was the kind of guys the Rays loved, or these cast offs that they can get value out of.
It's the island of misfit toys,
right? And you're going to hear about it, I'm sure, nationally, if the Rays do well. It's who do they have on their team? But I think Eloy's a great fit, and if they can get him, I know they mentioned some outfield work. He wants to try and play first base.
I'm glad. I'm going to go back to that quote, that thing that you just said about, hey, who are the Rays? It reminds me of that scene in Major League where Willie Mays Hayes goes, "It's not bad for a bunch of has-beens and some never was." Some has-beens and never was.
So there's I think a lot to feel good about the team. Again, it's a lot still has to go right, and we'll talk more in different positions, and as we get closer to the season and actually see some games happen with spring training. But right now, I know there's a bunch of mess going on with the stadium, and politics and all the bigger questions about the team, and but I think as the actual on the field product stands, there's a lot to be excited about, especially heading into spring. And let's just hope that the guys stay healthy, and
that's what
hopefully they show some good stuff here in the next couple of weeks. Get a good vibe going into the season.
I'm going to check out either a game on Saturday this weekend. Saturday they're going to be at home playing the Red Sox, and then they play the Braves in Venice on Sunday. So I'm going to try and go to one.
That's true. That's a little bit. Well, Venice
for me is 30 minutes away. Something.
Okay. Yeah.
It's before Charlotte Sports Park, so it's
gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's kind of ironic they're starting off at Steinbrenner on Friday as their road team.
Yes, which is funny.
Yeah.
But anyways, all right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Rays Rewind podcast, the sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast on the Sick Media Network. We will be back with the start of the preview of the 2025 season with our outlook on this season, and we'll preview what's going on with the team, and we'll just go on from there until the season starts. So for myself and Drew, we'll see you later on the Rays Rewind podcast. Make sure to go to our YouTube page at the Sick Podcast Rays Rewind. Hit that subscribe and notification bell when you can. We'll see you guys later. Peace.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Rays Rewind with L. Bushman and Drew on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.